Good afternoon, everybody. It's about 1:13. And I just typed this up today. That's true, I typed it. There's no doubt about that I typed it. As you can see, evidence is right there. 3.5 pages worth of typing. Now, some of the things that I mentioned in here, well, obviously you can see the question, hopefully, if it's up there and it's able to fill out the whole thing without having to be shortened. But if not, you'll see the question in the description box. You see, the question, folks, is this. And it's a very reasonable question. Some might feel it's crazy to ask this. Some might rant and argue and say, oh, you're just upset at this, you and your fans are upset at that. But the truth is, folks, what we have here is a question that not just me and not just any other fan has, but a lot of fans have. And it's a question that seems to be basically at times debated. It's a question that does get asked, but doesn't get fully explored or fully looked into. And the question, again, you can probably look it up there or in the description box, is this. The question is the story arc an excuse to get Sally Acorn fully clothed at the end of it? What I mean by fully clothed is, we all know that ever since season 2 of SatAM, and throughout a majority of the comics, up until at least the end of 230, before her robotization, her main appearance was a vest and boots. That was it. And in the first season, in the earlier issues of the comic, all she had was boots. And that was it. Now, the reason this question is asked is because some fans have brought this to every other fan's attention. And this is what I wrote up, or typed up. And I want you to listen clearly on this. And again, you can see that it's typed. So if this is in two parts, I apologize. But this is what I said, and I quote, "By asking the question, is the story arc an excuse to get Sally fully clothed at the end of it, this is what I ask." And I apologize if I'm moving around. I'm checking on my dog at the same time, make sure she's not doing anything outside that she shouldn't be. Okay, looks like my dog's going to settle down in the sun a little bit. Yep. Alright. Again, asking the question, is this story arc an excuse to get Sally fully clothed at the end of it? And I quote what I typed. I quote, "What I mean is, with Ian having Eggman modify and weaponize Sally, complete with a blue body or armor, is this Ian's way of finally fully clothing Sally if, when, should she be restored in the end?" Well, some fans do feel that might be the case. But why? Well, throughout the years, the one thing many non-Sally fans have complained about is the fact that she's almost completely naked, with the only exceptions being her vest and boots. Now, many longtime fans are okay with this, because this is how they have known Sally throughout the years in the comic and SatAM. Heck, she even has this design on the cover of the Best of Sonic the Hedgehog comic collection coming out later this year, or at least I think it's this year. But still, there are those that feel different about it. And throughout time, their dislike for her just wearing a vest and boots have shown. Being among those fans since the game's reboot with Sonic Adventure, one could probably understand this. Why? Because these non-fans have pointed out at various times that they feel that it's unfair that characters like Amy Rose, Rouge, Shade, Cosmo, Vanilla and Cream, and even Blaze and Marina have to be fully clothed and Sally isn't. Heck, they even point out the fact that even Bunny, Mina, Loop, and even Hershey are fully clothed, and that it's unfair that Sally isn't. Now, many would agree with our arguments, but again, there are those that try to point out the fact that this is how Sally is. One reason they point out is the fact that she is somewhat of a tomboy princess, and by just wearing a vest and boots, along with a short hairstyle, is one way of proving that, which one would argue and agree is a valid point to make. But if you want another example, let's look at Cleo from the Cadillac Cats, in other words, Heathcliff in the Cadillac Cats. She's naked for most of the show's run and in her appearances. Now I know someone will point out the fact that it was during the show's run from the mid to late 80s, so she was able to get away with it. In other words, the animators were able. I apologize for the dog next door. So she was able to get away with it. Wait, this dog didn't get on my nerve. Okay, they got the dog in, so thank God. Okay. Again, like I was saying, and I quote, "Now I know someone will point out the fact that it was during the show's run from the mid to late 80s, so she was able to get away with it." In other words, the animators were able to get away with drawing her like that. Now, I'm not saying she didn't have clothes on at times. She did. There were some episodes where she had to put on some clothes, but that was it. Some episodes. Okay. Now, continuing on, I say, okay, but what about Mona Lisa from season 4 of the original TMNT that aired on CBS in the 1990s? She was naked in her mutant form, save a belt and an ascot. And what about Venus in Next Mutation? She was naked for a majority of that show's run, and no one complained about it, and it was live action, not animated. And again, I know someone will point out the fact that she is a turtle, and there's a difference. True. However, you should get what I'm trying to say and point out here. The fact of the matter is that there are those that don't like the idea of this arc possibly being nothing more than a running excuse to get her in a fully clothed bodysuit because all she wears is a vest and boots. They feel by doing this, Ian is giving in. Let me make sure. Ian is giving into pure pressure from not just Sega, but from fans that complain. But here's a question for you. How do you know that if this happens, if it won't be for the remainder of that issue, she's probably restored it, or she's possibly restored it? How do you know, basically, it's only going to be for the remainder of that issue? And that in the next issue, she won't be back to her vest and boots style? How do you not know that? Because if you do, you'll realize that's how she is and always will be accepted. True, some fans have drawn art of what they feel she will look like in a bodysuit after she is possibly changed back to normal. And the reason they do this is so they, along with those that view the art, won't be too shocked and surprised by it, if that is what Ian might do, if she is possibly restored in the if that is what Ian might do if she is possibly restored in a future issue or so. So I thought I'd get that off my chest. Unquote. So yeah, you can definitely see that this is typed up right here. This is typed up, as you can see. Is this proof? And again, like my previous video, I will provide the links to where you can find this and read it yourself. Because some of them have attachments, and if you want to read this the way I'm showing it to you right now, you can click and download those attachments. But basically what I'm asking folks, and I know some people will have an argument about it, is this story arc Nothing but an excuse. Is it exactly what some fans feel it could be? Is this just Ian's way of finally giving in to the peer pressures of Sega, of not just Sega, but of the fans that have complained about this issue and say, okay, fine, you want her full body clothing? Here you go. And you know what's funny is I posted this at several forums already, with the exception of one, and that may have to occur on Wednesday. But I posted this at several forums. And what's funny about this, folks, what's funny about this is that this one fan responded so far, and this one fan basically berated me for saying for asking this question. And you know what? You know what his excuse was? You know what he said the reason was? He says, well, it's about damn time they did it. You know, for all the flack Amy gets for showing off her panties in the games. Those are the games, not the comics. But you know what this proves to me, this one fan saying this? It proves to me that this one fan is indeed an Amy fan. Not that I don't have a problem with that. I'm a fan of Amy Rose too. I like her character. I do. I like how sometimes when you piss her off, she'll get the hammer and whack the shit out of you. I like that. I think she's a great character. But if this is why you feel Sally should be on that same level, then you know what? Why don't you just come out and say it? You know, basically what I'm trying to point out here, and I'm sure any fans that might agree with me, they will say the same thing. The reason she has this design, the vest and the boots, is because that's how we know her. That's how people know her. That's how people recognize her. Yeah, there's a lot of other comic book characters out there and such that have had design changes, but they always contain some kind of remnants from the previous design to show that this is how you recognize them. I've seen comic book issues with Rogue in X-Men to where she's had a design change a little bit, hairstyle, whatever, but yet she still keeps like her trench coat and all that, and that's how people recognize her. I mean, I can understand maybe if they want to give Sally someone like a two-piece suit, maybe like a two-piece bodysuit, like I've seen the pictures where she's worn like a swimsuit kind of thing, two-piece deal, and she's had gloves, but she's had gloves and stuff, but she still kept the vest and boots. So even if, let's say, he does something like that and she still keeps the vest and boots, at least that allows us to know that she hasn't changed much. You get what I'm trying to say, folks? I'm trying to say that I know people want to see her probably finally be on the same level as all the other characters, and that's okay. But she's always been on the same level. It's just that the design she's had since the days of the cartoon, second season, and even throughout the majority of the comics up till before her robotization in 230, and even in Genesis, have been how fans have known her and recognized her. That's like saying if they wanted to change Minnie Mouse's design to where she would wear something completely different from what we know her as. And they've tried that at times. And they only do it sometimes for promotional stuff, to get kids' attention. But that's about it. They've always kept her the way she was. You go to Disneyland, she's exactly as she was, as fans recognize her. And again, I apologize for my neighbor's dog. But she's exactly as fans recognize her. Heck, they even tried it with Daisy one time. They tried to give her a redesign in Crack Pack. Didn't work. She went back to the way she was. Yeah, she has a little bit of a design change in House of Mouse, but that's about it. Most of the majority of the time, she's the way she was in the classic cartoons. So it shows you what design they prefer over that, what fans prefer over those other two. But you get what I'm saying, right? Hopefully you get what I'm saying. But anyway, I will provide the links down below. You comment and tell me what you guys think, and I'll talk to y'all later.